I think we've seen different organizations and then personally, right, different people show up in different spaces for different causes, right? Black Lives Matter cause. I've noticed at least white allyship to show up in different ways. So I'm interested to know from your experience how you've seen that play out, right, in your different ecosystems. So with your friends, family, here at school, different organizations that you're seeing out in the world.
Being like a student, active student leader on campus, and then being pro-black, and then kind of seeing there's like a very big social media aspect of like new changes that I was like seeing that was happening. Our generation just tends to be very apathetic, but then out of nowhere, I started seeing an outcry from people, white and black, that normally wouldn't speak up on like these type of issues. Personal opinion, I feel like it shouldn't be a black or white issue. It should be the fact like human life was lost. You do have to take care and like be aware that, with the social like paradigms and like the institutional and systematic effects of things that have happened, like it is inherently a black and white thing sometimes. But coming back, I think I was very cautious in thinking about what the campus climate would be like coming back. Cause like, yeah, I believe like, and everybody's like, hoorah, like, yeah, Black Lives Matter all of a sudden. But I didn't want it to just be a trend, you feel me? We kind of forced people for the first time to kind of make us like pick a side almost, it felt. It was like people would call you out. Like I even posted, I was like, yo, if you're my friend really and you say you're about me and you don't speak up about this, I don't know if you're really my friend. And I actively posted that. But it forced people for the first time to not sit back and be a bystander, to actively take a role. I didn't understand if people were doing it because they felt like they had to showcase that they weren't racist, or if people actively cared.
Remember that whole, there was this whole movement, or I wouldn't call it a movement, there was this day where everyone decided to post like
the black
square on their Instagram pages.
And this is something I struggle with too, like we exist in these spaces where we're trying to be so understanding of people, and I'm just too nice when it comes to stuff like this. I think sometimes I fell into that trap of feeling like, man, that person supposed to have black square, they're dope, look, they were out here trying to help the cause. When again, it comes back to that idea of like, one, it was just a trend thing, everybody saw black squares, they're like, I wanna hop on this wave, I'm gonna post a black square. And then two, it was like, I'm about to go back and see these people. I don't wanna look racist.
Yeah. Posting the black square was very much just kind of checking off a box. It didn't really feel like it had much substance behind it, to be honest, because it was just everybody was doing it. That day on Tuesday, that was the only thing you saw all over Instagram.
I felt like it was super just performative. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Just to put it out there.
It enabled a ton of performance, I think.
Yeah.
Because you saw folks who had never said a word ever, and all of a sudden there's a black square on their page.
Absolutely.
It's
Or is that
clear,
just virtue signaling?
Yeah.
So virtue signaling to me is like when you're not necessarily behind a cause, but you want other people to think you're behind that cause, to like have people think you're a better person, you know what I mean? So like people who, like Frank, you were saying, you saw people who didn't post anything but then posted that black square. Maybe that's to signal to other people that they're behind this cause when they maybe actually aren't.
These like people start acknowledging the issues that like, whiteness has like kind of spread.
Yeah.
White supremacy through like different institutions and systems. I feel like a lot of the time people inherently like breaking that down for themselves feel like they have to overact to show that they care more than they necessarily might actually do.
Yeah.
I find that it's hard for people that identify as white to critically analyze systems. And this is part of the reason why people who might have family members who are a police chief or are policemen, I think it's hard for them to not look at that person as opposed to critically analyzing the systems, right?
Agreed.
So people are trying to do these things that might come off as performative, that might come off as virtue signaling, but they aren't necessarily critically analyzing the systemic racism or the historical racism that has gone on in this country, right? So as people are working through that and they might identify as white, the guilt sets in because they can't critically analyze those systems of white supremacy, of systemic racism without pointing a finger at themselves. They can't separate their own identity from the system.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking about the human condition, All I ask is that you care about the person across from you and you care about the person that's next to you, no matter who they might be. But these concepts are hard to grasp because they can't critically analyze systems without necessarily pointing the finger at themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think kind of getting back to what actually all three you were saying too is like, especially when like being in college right now is such an interesting time because like you were saying, like you come from this bubble of your hometown, right? Maybe not everybody, but a lot of people in your hometown have those similar opinions. And then you come to college and you're exposed to all these different things. Like I'm a white dude from Idaho. Like I'm from way out there. And Connecticut is like so different than what I grew up with that it's been like so interesting. But I think that's also the flip side of like the performative thing. Like maybe that's also people like taking their first step into allyship. Maybe that's their like, they're trying to get involved in it. They don't know how to do it because they're from this bubble and it's just a learning curve too.